we see in one side President Trump is imposing tariffs. On the other side, we see he is selling arms to the countries just like a salesman. On the other side, we see that he has stopped aids. I mean, this $95 billion foreign aid packages in Congress is literally paused. Sir, how do you see? Is it the way he is making America great again?
Thank you, Mr. Kanchan. Of course, as per your statement, they are on, Senate is launching a vote-a-rama on the rescission bill. They are rescinding approximately $9 billion in public broadcast and foreign aid funding. As Norman was saying, where the Americans pull back, the Chinese fulfill. Immediately when I heard that statement, I took to notice in the face of natural calamities, one such event in the last 5 years would be the coronavirus, novel coronavirus. Now, during that time, vaccines became important, masks became important, doctoral experience became important, and it was more on the side of Asian giant like China for them to produce such vaccines, produce masks for the general people. So obviously, what Norman said earlier, where the US leaves, China shall fulfill, is quite so true. However, I want to get your attention to something that is quite so important for the American legislation as well. Donald Trump is considering firing a Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell. However, in his first presidency, he was the one who appointed Jerome Powell, and even Donald Trump thought 2017, and even Donald Trump thought that Joe Biden would have had him removed as the federal chair. Of course, the person Jerome Powell definitely has done some good work in his time in his position that even Joe Biden, someone who is Democrat leader, also kept him in chair. However, given this position, major groups such as Citigroup, Goldman Sachs and Bank of America have publicly defended the Federal's independence, warning that political interference could undermine US markets' credibility.
Gaza's humanitarian crisis deepens. What role should international actors like the EU or UN play in ensuring aid reaches civilians, because the world have been witnessed that Israel is bombing on the aid distribution centers, Israel is bombing on the hospitals, schools, killing innocent women, children. Then what kind of role UN or EU can play to stop this kind of brutal attacks on the civilian?
Well, majority of the attacks that are happening in the Gaza Strip, various places, as you said, innocent women and children are attacked on a daily basis. The casualties are piling up every hour, if I have to be specific. Even 2-3 weeks ago, it was at a 54,000 limit. Now it has crossed the threshold of 58,000. And in addition, you said, what can the UN and the EU do? It wouldn't be, the term sanctioning Israel would sound very off to Western media. I would say that global powers like the EU and the UN, they should actually look where, in order to stop this escalation in Gaza, how can we sit, or if not in diplomatical table, in order to address Israeli aggression. If that fails, if diplomacy initially fails, right now Qatar is engaging itself with Egypt as well to understand how can a resolution be arrived at. And of course, mediation definitely will take some time before such an attack can fend off. But it's very heartbreaking to hear and to see almost every single day we hear about innocent Gazans who are trying to get aid distribution. But however, while doing so, there are stampedes, there are unknown deaths. This is internally displacing hundreds of thousands of Palestinians in what we likely know as the greatest humanitarian disaster ever seen. One can say that Adolf Hitler took action against the Jews in Auschwitz, in the gas chambers, which was almost nearly 100 years ago in 1945, in the brink of the World War II. Well, a similar notion is now very active today, except that the roles of people have changed, except now the tortured ones are the Palestinians. And of course, even the IDF soldiers, even yesterday I said they are facing some kind of emotional stress in where after the war on innocent children, women in Gaza, they are sorting or looking forward or arriving at attempting to take their own lives in a suicide. So it only shows how gruesome this attack is and how unneeded, unwarranted this attack has become.